Good evening. Today in the Council, the United States renewed its call for the international community to support the newly formed government of Ukraine and prevent unnecessary violence. Unfortunately, the Russian Federation Council's authorization of the use of military force in Ukraine is as dangerous as it is destabilizing. It is past time for the threats to end. The Russian military must pull back. It is ironic that the Russian Federation regularly goes out of its way in the Security Council chamber to emphasize the sanctity of national borders and sovereignty. Today, Russia would do well to heed its own warnings. Russia's actions in Ukraine violate Russia's commitment to protect the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of Ukraine, and pose a threat to international peace and security. The United States again calls for the immediate deployment of international observers from either the OSCE or the United Nations to Crimea and other parts of Ukraine to provide transparency about the movement and activities of military and paramilitary forces in the region and to diffuse the tension between groups. The best way to get the facts, to monitor conduct, and to prevent any abuses is to get international monitors and observers, including from the UN and OSCE, on the ground as soon as possible. We are also working to stand up an international mediation mission to the Crimea to begin to de-escalate the situation and to facilitate productive and peaceful political dialogue among all Ukrainian parties. Less than 1 week since the sun set on the Sochi Olympics, we are at a critical moment. The United States considers the current actions by Russia in Ukraine as unacceptable behavior for a G8 member. The United States will stand with the people of Ukraine and the Ukrainian government in Kyiv. And as the President has said, intervention by the Russian military will be both a grave mistake and will have costs and consequences. With that, I'll take a couple questions.
James?
James Bays from Al Jazeera. I know President Obama has been speaking to President Putin. President Putin now has this authorization, but there's clearly now a gap before he decides whether he's going to use it. Just explain to us, if you can, on camera, what is the message from the US to President Putin right now?
The message is, pull back your forces. Let us engage in political dialogue. Engage with the Ukrainian government, which is reaching out to you for that dialogue. The occupation, the military presence in Crimea is a violation of international law, and we all need to allow cooler heads to prevail and to negotiate a peaceful way out of this crisis. Military force will never be the answer to this crisis.
Ambassador, what are those costs that the United States says that Russia will suffer? And secondly, as a champion of human rights, as I trouble you, there are 4 senior members of the Ukrainian government who have come from very far-right extremist parties.
I think what you heard from President Obama in the readout that the White House issued is that the United States has already suspended its preparation for the G8 summit that is was supposed to take place in Sochi. And what I can say is that, again, the political and economic isolation that represents is only going to deepen as this crisis escalates. And that is why, again, it is incredibly important that an international observer mission get into Ukraine as soon as possible, that all countries embrace the prospect of international mediation, such as that offered by the UN Special Envoy Robert Seri, and that we embrace the fundamental tenets of the UN Charter: territorial integrity, sovereignty, and unity of Ukraine, avoiding the use of force and the threat of force, and returning to the path of peaceful dialogue.
Ambassador?